The film opens with a tender and nostalgic video clip capturing a young Maxine Miller as she performs an enchanting little dance routine. This intimate moment is lovingly recorded by her father, Pastor Ernest Miller. In this heartwarming scene, young Maxine repeats a phrase from her father that would come to define her life's journey: "I will not accept a life I do not deserve." Fast forward to 1985, Maxine Minks now has made a name for herself in the adult film industry after surviving the harrowing farm massacre in Texas. However, her ambitions have grown, and she is determined to break into mainstream Hollywood cinema. Her sights are set on a role in the highly anticipated horror film The Puritan 2, penned and directed by the illustrious Elizabeth Bender. Maxine arrives at the audition with a fierce determination and delivers a performance that leaves the casting directors in awe. Her raw talent and captivating presence are undeniable. However, the casting directors, adhering to the exploitative norms of the industry, ask her to expose her breasts, a request that underscores the challenges women face in Hollywood. Despite this, Maxine remains undeterred. Before leaving the audition, she confidently declares to Elizabeth and the panel that they should cast her because she is destined for stardom. As she exits the audition room, Maxine exudes an air of triumph and self-assurance. She encounters the other hopeful actresses waiting for their turn and, with a sly smile, boasts that she has secured the part. Amidst the current events, a wave of protests has erupted against The Puritan 2. Demonstrators label it a work of Satanism, alleging it has caused the deaths of several individuals. Meanwhile, a notorious serial killer known only as the Night Stalker is on the loose, instilling fear across California. Maxine stays in touch with her agent, Teddy Knight, who is diligently working to help her land new roles. She shares the exciting news about her part in The Puritan with her friend and roommate, Leon, who works at an adult product store that also sells movies, as well as with fellow adult film star Amber James. Amber extends an invitation to Maxine for a party in the Hollywood Hills, but Maxine, busy with her commitments, politely declines. Her second job takes her to a live peep show where a client awaits her arrival. This mysterious man remains unseen, dressed in a dark suit and wearing black gloves, adding an air of intrigue to the situation. After finishing her shift, Maxine walks alongside her friend Tabby Martin, played by Halsey, who also invites her to a party. Yet again, Maxine declines the offer, choosing to focus on her current priorities. As they part ways, Maxine suddenly realizes she's being followed by a man wielding a knife. In a swift move, she pulls out her gun, confronting him head-on. To her surprise, she takes control of the situation by forcing him to strip naked and then to place the gun in his mouth. The encounter escalates as Maxine viciously stomps on the man's testicles with the heel of her shoe, inflicting a brutal injury that leaves a lasting impression. Later at her apartment, Maxine receives a mysterious package delivered by a man named John Labatt, who secretly works for the Night Stalker. As she opens it, she discovers a video of herself filming a scene from the porno at the farm, sending a chill down her spine. The situation takes a darker turn when the enigmatic figure kidnaps both Tabby and Amber, recording the harrowing incident as he leaves them tied up and lifeless in a lake. The following morning, detectives William and Torres arrive at the scene, where they find Tabby and Amber's bodies marked with satanic symbols carved into their bodies and faces, a haunting reminder of the horrors that have unfolded. Before heading to the set, Maxine meets with an FX artist to create a mold of her head. Once the artist leaves, Maxine finds herself alone, her thoughts consumed by the haunting memories of her time on the farm, particularly her chilling encounter with Pearl. Overwhelmed, she suddenly collapses, but the artist quickly returns to help her back on her feet. Later, Maxine receives a cryptic message containing a phone number. Curiosity piqued, she decides to call it, only to be greeted by Labatt's voice. Labatt arranges to meet Maxine at a hotel. After meeting with Maxine, he informs her that his employer is searching for her and that they both know about her connection to the farm massacre. Maxine firmly denies any involvement, but Labatt warns her that she must meet his employer that night at a location on Starlight Drive. If she doesn't comply, Labatt threatens to expose her presence at the farm that fateful night. Meanwhile, detectives Williams and Torres track down Maxine, eager to question her about the murders of Tabby and Amber. However, she shuts them down, refusing to provide any information. The tension mounts as Maxine finds herself caught between a dangerous web of threats and the law, leaving her future uncertain. As Maxine dives into her work on the Puritan II, she quickly realizes that Elizabeth is just as tough as everyone had warned her. The pressure builds when Maxine notices Labatt tailing her. In a moment of fear and anger, she takes her keys and uses them as a weapon, punching Labatt in the face repeatedly until he is left bloodied and bruised. After the brutal encounter, Labatt ominously declares that their conflict has now turned personal. Opting to stay home and focus on her script rather than head to the location, Maxine remains unaware of the horror unfolding nearby. At the video store where Leon works, he suddenly finds himself cornered by the mysterious figure. In a violent frenzy, the figure slashes Leon multiple times before delivering a fatal stab. The next morning, Maxine is devastated to see Leon's lifeless body being wheeled out of the store. Detective Williams reveals to her that Leon has been marked with a satanic star, deepening her sense of dread. Once again, the detectives urge Maxine to cooperate, but she remains tight-lipped. In a desperate attempt to find protection from Labatt, she reaches out to Teddy, only to discover that he has no information on the man following her. Determined to get back to work, Maxine returns to the set, where she encounters Molly Bennett, the star from the first Puritan film. Although Molly's character died, she is being brought back for the sequel. As they walk to her trailer, Maxine chats with Molly, who also hints at an intriguing part in the hills, sparking a glimmer of excitement amidst the chaos surrounding her. Maxine soon spots Labatt trailing her again, prompting her to sprint through the studio sets in a frantic escape. Fortunately, security manages to catch Labatt and escort him out. But later that night, he resumes his pursuit, relentlessly following her. In a clever move, Maxine lures him into a trap where she's joined by Teddy and another ally, Shepard Turai. Together, they overpower Labatt, knocking him out cold. They take him to a junkyard where they confine him inside his car and slowly crush it, all while he desperately begs for mercy. Haunted by the recent events, Maxine reflects on Detective Williams's words about stopping further murders. Driven by a newfound determination, she decides to visit the address Labatt had given her, which leads her to a house in the hills. To her horror, she discovers that her stalker is none other than her father, Ernest. He reveals that he has killed Molly and stored her dismembered remains in a suitcase, along with the bodies of Maxine's friends, framing them as victims of the Night Stalker. Before Maxine can process this shocking revelation, Ernest knocks her unconscious and binds her. He unveils his twisted plan to create a film using footage of his heinous acts, exploiting the darkness of Hollywood as a form of revenge for Maxine abandoning their home in pursuit of fame. To add to the horror, she is prepared for a staged exorcism scene alongside a cult of Ernest's followers, plunging her deeper into a nightmare she never saw coming. As the chaos unfolds, Detectives Williams and Torres arrive at the scene, immediately engaging in a fierce shootout with Ernest's henchmen. In the midst of the action, Maxine joins the chase, pursuing Ernest as he makes a frantic escape up the Hollywood sign. The confrontation becomes deadly when Torres is shot fatally, and Williams suffers a horrific injury, getting stabbed in the eye with a cross before tragically falling to her death. But in a final act of bravery, she manages to shoot Ernest, bringing him down just as she falls. With adrenaline pumping, Maxine takes aim at Ernest with a shotgun while police helicopters circle overhead. In that moment, she envisions her future, a world where she has stopped the Night Stalker and achieved the fame she has always dreamed of. Before pulling the trigger, she looks at her father and tells him that he didn't fail her. Instead, he provided the divine intervention she so desperately needed. She also recited the motto that her father had taught her since childhood one last time, that she would not accept a life she did not deserve. Then, with a powerful blast, she blows his head apart, ending his reign of terror once and for all. In the aftermath, Maxine returns to the set as a heroic survivor, her presence a testament to resilience. Elizabeth leads a somber moment of silence for Molly before transitioning back to work. In a private conversation, Elizabeth acknowledges that while Molly will be deeply missed, she didn't have a future beyond the Puritan films, a stark contrast to Maxine's potential. Elizabeth asks her what's next, and with determination in her voice, Maxine simply responds that she never wants her fame to end, signaling her desire to seize every opportunity that comes her way.